Good morning, everyone. It's Monday morning, and this is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. I'm Kevin Allen. He's Tom Laidlaw. You know him. He's the former NHL player for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. And we're ready to talk hockey. It's, it's almost, Tom, I was thinking this reminds me of, kind of the dog days when, there's still free agents available, but nobody's talking about them. Everybody's kind of in a holding pattern, waiting for the Tampa Bay Lightning to clear cap space. I got to believe the Nashville Predators are among those teams that are saying, "Hey, look, I'm here for you. I'll take care of your needs.
Yeah,
just give me a little bit for doing that."
Yeah, you kind of think that's a good point. You got to think something's gonna big, like something usually during the summer. Remember when was it that Shea Weber was traded for PK Subban? Wasn't it one?
Yeah.
Was like 3 big trades or something?
Yeah, we had a lot of stuff going on. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but you're right. It was like boom, boom, boom. And, one thing we know about David Poile is he plays his cards close to the vest. I remember his late father telling me the story of, they were in Montreal, I believe, for the draft. I hope I got that part of the story right. I think so. I think they were in Montreal. And he shared a cab with his son, and he goes, "You got anything going on the trade market, David?" Right. And David Poile said, "No, Dad, I got nothing going. So he went home, Bud did, and or went back to the hotel, got up the next morning, opened up the paper. Capitals make the famed Rod Langway, trade. But he wouldn't even tell his dad he had something going. So, this could happen. Nobody saw the Subban trade coming before it happened, and it was really a sort of a dramatic thing, and could be something shocking. I mean, didn't somebody predict? I think so, that the Lightning might cure their salary cap woes with something that nobody's talking about. So it wouldn't be the Tyler Johnson or the Alex Killorn deal.
And I gotta believe you both and I feel the same way about David Poile. We respect him totally. He's got to see that something's got to change in that lineup. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think, I floated this out, not that it was a rumor, but just to illustrate, how you could be creative. And what I put out there, just saying, look, what if the Predators went to BriseBois and said, "Look, we'll take Tyler Johnson, right, and then $5 million at 4 years." Right. But you got to take a little bit of it back. So let's make him 3.5. Now all of a sudden that's a pretty palatable. Tyler Johnson's a good player.
But to me, the problem with the Nashville lineup is I feel like they need to do something with players like a Matt Duchene. I just don't think that works. But that's not going to work with Tampa. Right?
Well, let's look at this. But they haven't been able to do that. But let's just say for the time being that they've tried and they can't move Matt Duchene. Right. So we bring him in at 3.5, and we make him the number 2 center.
Right.
And then we move Matt Duchene over in the wing. Now, they only have, by my estimation anyway, 4 legitimate top 4 forwards.
Right.
They got Duchene, they got Johansson, they got Arvidsson, and they got Forsberg. The other 2 guys that were playing in that top 6, Craig Smith, he's gone to Boston, right, and Granlund is floating around there, and he's not coming back. Right. So they only have 4 guys. Now, you could argue that maybe we can move Yarn Krok up there, but, those guys have sort of been third liners now for a long time. I think they think they have a couple other guys that they might be able to move up there. But, it's if you're thinking and hoping that maybe you got a top 6 forward, those guys probably shouldn't be top 6 forward.
Yeah, you know what though? My issue is as much as the lineup on the ice, it's more the locker room with that team. I just don't think Johansson, who I really liked when he first got to Nashville after being in Columbus. I thought his game really came together. He was playing discipline. He was playing hard. I've never, and that's awful to say this about a hockey player, but for some reason, Matt Duchene, he's not like that. I don't know. It's like he's kind of rocking the boat. It seems like I didn't like the way he handled himself in Colorado. I just feel like there's something missed in that lineup. So, and again, maybe David Poile doesn't feel the same way, but if he does feel the same way,
I think he does, though, Tom. I mean, the word on in the street though is he was trying to trade Johansson or Duchene.
Right. Oh, okay. Oh.
So, but nobody's going to take those contracts.
Yeah, but you see, okay, so now we're in the arbitration period, right? And typically, like once arbitration is done, now everybody knows, okay, here's what. Now that doesn't affect a whole lot of players. Now there's not many players going to arbitration, but now they said, okay, here I know what my budget is, right? So now we can go ahead. Those trade talks that have been floating around for a while, and there's no hurry right now, right? We're in the summertime, nobody's losing hockey games, so everybody's kind of playing the waiting game and seeing what's happening. So now they're thinking, okay, now those trade talks that I had with David Poile about Matt Duchene and Johansson, now they maybe start to come to fruition a little bit more, right? I don't know. That's my feeling.
Maybe, but just going back to where I started. So they take Johnson at 3.5, but they want a big return from Tampa to do that. Now I don't know what that is, what that big return is.
So Mark with Stahl when he went to Detroit got a second round pick for taking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they got to get a lot more than a second round pick. Right. So yeah, because that's a 4 years are left on that deal.
Right.
But I think that helps them. I mean, in terms of offensive production.
Yeah.
Tyler Johnson, we're only 2 seasons removed from him scoring 29 goals.
You know what? And I'm starting to like your idea maybe more and more. Okay, so now you get Johnson. If you think that maybe you can move Matt Duchene, now
he's played as much wing as center really in his career. So
so maybe you can move. Maybe it's easier for your team now to move Matt Duchene. And
yeah, I mean, if you've tried to move him, and the cost to move Matt Duchene may be too great.
I just look at Matt Duchene though as like he's still a good enough player on the right team. I guess I'm criticizing him in one way, but as a player, he's still a good enough player. I mean, it's not like you're just getting rid of him and have to pay to get rid of him. I think you're.
Oh, I think you are having to pay to
really?
get rid of him.
Really?
Yeah, no, because of his contract.
Yeah.
Let's look at his contract here, and let's just see if, because I think it's 7 years left, 6 years left.
Yeah.
So we're at Cap Friendly, the best source. Thank you, Cap Friendly, for all that you do for all of us.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Central Division. We got the Nashville Predators because I no longer can keep all these contracts in my head anymore. Let's see. Matt Duchene, $8 million a year, 6 more years. $8 million for 6 years, and they couldn't get anybody to take that. Now let's look at Johansson as well.
He's up there, right?
$8 million for 5 more years. So now we know why it was not easy, certainly to move those guys. That's just a lot of money, especially in a level cap, era. So I don't know. I mean, we could see something happen. It doesn't necessarily like Nashville is not the only team that could help. Yeah. New Jersey Devils could help.
There's one of those teams though. Nashville, to me, if I'm a Nashville Predator fan, I'm waiting for something to happen. They can't continue going on.
Yeah.
They've changed coaches. It didn't work. Now they've made all these changes. I tell you, and again, total respect for David Poile, but I would never understand the Shea Weber trade. I mean, I know there's a big contract for him. It was like a 12-year contract. Maybe that was part of it. But man, I was like, he's that character guy that, like, I just think, I'm not saying he's going to be able to fix the locker room if he's still there in Nashville, but I just picture him as the kind of guy that like a Zdeno Chara in Boston is, that then he runs the locker room and you're expected to act a certain way as a team player when you play with those kind of guys.
Well, they got to the final with Subban. He played well for him for a couple of seasons.
Yeah.
And then it didn't work, but, and then, the one of the issues with Subban too is, he's got a lot going on in his life, and hockey players don't like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, in some ways I look at him and I say, wow, smart guy, right? He's marketing and branding himself. He's preparing for after the game. But yeah, hockey typically doesn't like it when it looks like those other things that he's doing are clearly taking away from his play on the ice, right? Because he showed how good of a player he was. He was a Norris Trophy candidate. Now he's not even a top defenseman on his own team in New Jersey.
Yeah. No, it's
is Terry okay there? Is she coughing over there?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she's got the plague.
That is terrible.
No, I mean she's
probably got dust all over because she's fixing the house all the time. You're sitting there.
no, actually, she watched two of my grandkids because my daughter and her husband had they went away for a couple of days, and the little girl had a cold, and she's gotten it, and it just hit her like a ton of bricks here. Her
you like the caring husband, like getting her chicken soup and all that kinds of stuff.
Well, I can't. My wife doesn't eat meat, so I can't get her chicken soup. So no, I haven't been able to do that, but I'm certainly concerned about it. And
you've got empathy. You have the.
Oh yeah, I do have empathy, but I'm trying to do whatever I can to be a help. I went and got her orange juice yesterday because she needed that vitamin C.
There you go. Okay.
So I'm doing what I can. I don't much like it. I don't like it when my wife is sick.
I like that.
So, but we don't think it's COVID, but we'll watch it closely. But for a different reason, my grandson's teacher got COVID. My wife had to be tested. I think it was 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, and it was negative then.
Right.
So she's been through the process before. So this is how you are living in 2020. I was thinking about this, and almost everyone in my family, with the exception of me, who has lived as a hermit, has had a COVID test for one reason or another. My son-in-law's had 2 or 3 because he's been working through all this, and some of the people that he works with, are not being very careful. So he's had it. My daughter is a teacher; she's had a couple of tests as well. My grandkids have had them because one of the teachers that they go to had them. My son works in a medical clinic, so he's had to have them. My daughter-in-law had to have one because one of her friends ended up with it. So they've all had COVID tests, but they've all been negative. So, but it's running us over now in the Midwest. And I saw they did a comparison of Chicago, where my son lives, in terms of the positivity rate, and it's much higher than New York. And
really?
Yeah, much higher. Yeah. So they've, it looks like they're trying to get it back under control in the Northeast, and they've been a little more effective at it than. Although we learned this week, I saw I wouldn't have known it except I saw the news that the White House said they're not sure we can control it. So,
I saw that headline. Yeah, I know.
So I don't know. That's a very confusing time, to be sure.
Well,
anyway, let's get back on task here. I want to talk a little bit about. They had a GM meeting.
Yes.
And one of the things they wanted to talk about was the lottery. And this is what I admire about Steve Yzerman. He was as gentlemanly and as professional as possible when his team slipped to 4th place after having one of the worst seasons in NHL history. Sure. And he said, I told my group going in, there's a greater chance that we're going to pick at 4 than we are at 1. So let's prepare accordingly. And, he said all the right things. But what we're hearing now is that, in the meeting, Yzerman and others said, this system it's not working. And I agree with them. And to me, it's a simple fix. I believe in the lottery. I think it's important to have it. I think it sort of protects against the constant tanking because you can't be really sure. Now, you're still going to have some tanking because, everyone knows that you're better off if you pick early than late. So you are going to have that. But I think and I also think it creates excitement. Like if your team is not a playoff team, you want something to look forward. You have to sell hope. And, the chance that even if it's a small chance, and that's what I'm getting here, I think it should be a small chance of getting that number 1 pick, that does create excitement. So to me, it's an easy fix. We just got to change the odds. Like there was an 80% chance that Yzerman's team was going to go from 1st to 4th.
Right.
That's just wrong. That they should be closer to 50%, in my opinion. And I think that fixes it.
I hear you. I guess I'm watching in football right now, the New York Jets. They're 0-7, I think they are. And they are terrible. And the only focus is are they getting the 1st overall pick? And there's that quarterback, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but it's an embarrassment to see them play in the NFL. Like I watched football all day yesterday, and I go and watch Tampa Bay, and they're throwing bombs up and down the field. And there's all these great games. There's excitement in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes and all that. And then you watch the New York Jets, like a major metropolitan area, like Detroit is a major area. And it's embarrassing. Like there's just and then now you got a year where the Giants aren't that good either. So the football in this town is just non-existent. So in a major metropolitan area like New York, the big sport in the country is just pretty much non-existent. That's what I don't like about the whole being rewarded for having a bad team. Right.
I get that, but our number one fan, Susan Brooks, is not going to like me for talking about this again, but it's a generational thing. The way sports now works, and I'm an old school guy, so it doesn't work for me. And I told the story before, but it bears repeating. Last year, my son-in-law, my cousin Nate, who's like a son to me, they're all Lions fans. They were all rooting aggressively and were having fun with rooting for more losses for the Lions so they could get a better pick. I'm an old school guy. I just want my team to win every week.
Right.
So even if they're bad, I understand why people feel that way, but it is now acceptable. Not only acceptable, but you now have two different lines of rooting.
Right.
You have the line when your team is winning, and then you have the line when you're losing, and now you want them to lose even more to get that pick. Now, not everybody can accept that, but that's the way it works now. I mean, we're totally on board.
Okay, let me ask you this then: is Connor McDavid a generational player?
Yes.
How many playoff rounds has he won since he's been in the NHL?
You don't think they're having more fun in Edmonton with Connor McDavid on their roster?
How many playoff rounds have they won?
Yeah, no, I know your point,
right?
But
just because you're going to get that generational player doesn't mean that you're going to be a good hockey team. Nor does it mean if you don't get a generational player, you're not going to be a good hockey team.
Did I say that? Did I say that?
No,
was the only reason you wanted to do it?
Well, I'm just saying that just because you're getting a generational player doesn't mean that your franchise is going to be a success.
I completely agree, and no one proves that more than the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
but we do know that it's easier to rebuild when you have early draft picks. Now, saying that,
the fourth overall pick in the draft is still an early draft pick, though.
For sure. Like they got a good pick. Like there's some people who believe the player he took could be as good as anyone in the top three, Lucas Raymond. So, I'm not saying that, but I think that I just think the odds should be better. Like a 50-50 chance is still reasonable for,
I don't know. I hear you. I get it. And to me, if they changed it, it wouldn't be the end of the world to me either. Or if they keep it the same way, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I don't know. I think it's another form of entertainment. So the Ranger fans, you look at them and they go, wow, this was a great system, right? I mean, so you have one organization that doesn't think it's so good, but so
I don't mind that every once in a while, you get something like that happen. Like, I think it's fun that, the Lafreniere ended up with the Rangers. Now, I'm alone in that, but I see, that's the point I'm trying to make, that, look, the Rangers announced they were rebuilding.
Right.
And, their rebuilding was different than the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Buffalo Sabres rebuilding, because they had players and they were going to try to rebuild on the fly. But, they've had lottery luck.
Yes.
And they've ended up with two great young players.
Yep.
And I think that's fine, because it doesn't always, work out for you. But I do think that when you're the worst team in the league, you need a better shot than 20%. That's my only point.
So it's good to reward the worst team in the league. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's just a sports tradition.
Well, but okay, here's another sports tradition. So in years past, when they had expansion, they made it in the expansion draft so that the new teams coming in got all the worst players.
Yes.
Right? Now they've changed that. Tradition has now changed, and they made it so they have a chance of being a better hockey team. Now you have the Vegas Golden Knights doing what they did, right? Now instead of having this weak franchise, you've allowed them to be a pretty good franchise right off the bat.
Yeah,
so
and
that's changed, right? So
but they did it. The reason they did it is money. in the old days,
Why? Do you think they would have got their $500 million if they still had the same old?
no,
That owner was supposed to, still would have. He didn't.
I'm not so sure about that.
Really.
Yeah, I think the idea now is that you want. I mean, I think it goes beyond just whether they would do it, but I think it's easier to sell Seattle on paying more than Vegas did,
right,
when you show them that
yes,
Vegas is going in. And I also think that the NHL did sell the idea that we're going to give you a better shot than expansion teams normally get, because they really, really jacked up the price of these.
Yes, that'll pay $750 as opposed to the $500 that.
I don't think it's that much. I think it's $650. Yeah, we have to look it up. I think that's really the case, and it to me it makes sense. Like, you wouldn't bring in a new McDonald's franchise and say, you can only serve inferior meat. We're going to give you inferior meat. You can't, we're going to. You want to give them,
top quality meat. Give them meat.
And look, did that strategy pay off? I argue yes, because I saw statistics that said, not this past season, but the season before, the Vegas Golden Knights were the #1 team in terms of creating revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. It made the league stronger. Like, you think about how silly it was in the past to not give those expansion team good players, right? So now you had good teams and bad teams. Now what the NHL has done, they've given everybody an opportunity to be a good team, including that first-year franchise in Vegas. So, yeah, it's really tough.
Here's the other thing, too. It was hard to make a go of it for these expansions.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, you think about
teams folding, they'd be in for a while, they'd fold.
Yeah. So it just wasn't a good business strategy, and I think this business strategy is more effective. And I think the thought process about giving them draft picks is the same business philosophy. You can't have a team just continue to be at the bottom forever and ever with no hope, because the fans aren't going to come, and then suddenly we're going to have to move that franchise.
Absolutely. I agree. So then it was good to break through tradition of the bad franchises, so the new franchises get bad players. Same thing that we're doing here. We broke the tradition of giving the team that's worst in the league an incentive to be the worst team in the league.
Well, I don't think they see it as breaking a tradition. I think they saw it as embracing a better business strategy. Right. And no one understands business better than you, so I would assume you'd be all over that.
Don't be brown nosed. And don't be like, saying nice stuff.
Well, I mean, you've been involved in business, and you know how that all works. And you've actually extolled the virtues of what Gary Bettman has done, at least in creating a higher business visibility for the NHL. And a lot of that is these kinds of things, doing.
And what I like about the league too is that you see it in the All-Star game too. They're willing to try new things, right? Like, if it doesn't work, so what? We've tried something new and exciting, and people will watch that. And that wasn't the way the league was before. Like, now it is that way. They'll try new things. Like,
that's not the way I was before either. I'm an old school guy.
That's an excellent point. Same thing as me. Like, who would have thought that I would have had a juicer and I'm juicing ginger in the morning?
Yeah. No, well, or that you'd be getting up every morning at 3:30 in the morning.
Yes, things do change. We broke traditions, so we are good examples of.
Yeah. Well, and you did it for the right reasons. You did it for health reasons.
Yes,
totally. And for mental and physical.
Very true. We're trying to get our follower here, Ron Greshner, who's chimed in a little bit with the standard hair joke that we won't even put up on the screen because that's all he's got. We're trying to get him to change his health habits too, so we're working on it.
Okay. Speaking of that, I just saw yesterday this story. Phelps, the swimmer, Olympic swimmer.
Phelps,
and he's talking about mental health, and he brought out that 5 Olympians that we all know, and they were a bobsledder, and there were some have committed suicide, and he just said it's an epidemic. And he's got this documentary, and it was really well done. And I'll tell you what,
particularly amongst Olympic athletes, you saying?
Olympic athletes, 5 of them. And I'll tell you what, I certainly admired him as an athlete, But I admire him even more now for coming out and talking about this. He just talked about the depression that he has felt, throughout his career, and just talking about, just think of the weirdness of, and you obviously went through it as well, and that's why I brought this up. Of when the applause stops, suddenly you're still young. You're in your 20s or 30s if you're Olympian. If you're in your 30s, usually if you're an NHL or MLB or an NFL player. And he just said, it's hard on you, and trying to sustain this drive, and trying to be successful. And, they had a figure skater on there who had gone through it as well, and said, there's no pensions, there's no weekly stipends anymore. Nobody's giving you any money. You don't have health insurance.
You're not around your teammates anymore. That's big things. Like, I've been very lucky to interview some of these Navy SEALs, and they're the same way. Like, they go through different people, different ways, but now you're on a team, and now that's taken away from you. Like, in all your life, you've grown up being on a team. So, Corey Hirsch, former player, is fantastic. He's doing a lot of helping a lot of people out there. Former Ranger, Vancouver Canuck, and everything. But he went through his own issues, mental health issues, and he's great now at helping other people. Now that we're talking about it, I should have him on for another podcast again, especially during this pandemic. But one of the big things, and Robert Leonard did this too, is the ability. Like, now it's getting, because of people like Corey Hirsch, it's easier for people now to come out and talk about it. It's not like hockey players in the past would and they still are a little hesitant about it, but to come out and admit that you have some weakness at all, especially a mental health issue, and that's tough for guys to do, right? There's the fear that you now get stereotyped. So it's the more that people do it, the better.
Well, it's interesting. Phelps's saying was, I don't know if it was his or just part of this group that's being formed now. It's okay to not be okay. Yeah. And, he just talks about that. And, they've had a number of people who've just come on and said, this one athlete said, I kind of went through the protocol chain of notifying the people that I wasn't right. They took it to other people and they tried to figure out whether, I should get, it just took forever. And it wasn't where you could just call and have an advocate. That's where the Players Association, I think, with alcohol and drug abuse, they have a system, right, where you can get immediate help.
You go back to, remember the old Sheldon Kennedy. He was a fantastic guy who was abused by his junior coach. When he first came to me and asked me to represent him and told me about the abuse issue, man, I was like most farm boy hockey guys. I had no idea what I should do, but I was very lucky, as you mentioned. The NHL and the NHLPA had put together that program with some great doctors there that really stepped in, because I had no idea what I should do for Sheldon at that point. So,
well, it's interesting, and you raised a really good point about you no longer have the teammates again, the support. Yeah. Well, really, when you think about it, when you're a pro athlete, and let's just take the NHL. So you start with the team on, let's say you're a star. So you start at 18 or 19 and you're on the team, and you can play a couple of decades.
Yep.
Now, for 20 years, you've been part of a structured environment. Your social network is there. It's created for you. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to meet new friends. You have a collection of friends all the time.
Yep.
Who have your back, whose existence is really about standing shoulder to shoulder with you at times. And even in the off season, you're talking to them about, hey, look, I hope we pick up another forward. We just need one more score. I think we can win it all.
Yeah.
You're talking about it. It's all, so it's all there. Your team is sending you diets, and they're sending you workout suggestions, and they have a trainer. And even when you're young, before you get there, you have people that are paying attention to how you're playing and asking you to do things better. Really just a structured environment. Sort of, I don't want to say they're telling you what to do, but they are sort of telling you what to do.
They're booking all your flights for you, your hotel.
Right. Yeah, everything's all good.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, poof.
Yeah,
it's gone, and nobody's sorting it out for you.
I tell you what, and I don't admit saying this, one of the scariest times in my life So I'd gone through that whole thing, played 11 years in the National Hockey League, finally with the LA Kings, and went up to Rogie Vachon's office and sat down and said, Tom, your career's over with. And I'll never forget walking out of the Great Western Forum, like out of the ramp up there. And like I was shaking, like it was scary. You know, I had a young family at home. You don't realize how it's going to hit you. I had all my life I had been on a team, and like you said, I had never booked a hotel for myself. I never booked a flight. All those things were, and it's even more so that way now. Like at least back then it was some things we did for ourselves. Now these guys are totally taken care of, and it's a great thing for them. It's fantastic, but yeah, it's a scary time, and I think the best part for me was, and it's funny saying this, I didn't make much money when I played. So it wasn't like I could sit back and relax for 4 or 5 years and figure out what I was going to do. I had to get to work, and I say that was the best because it was just, there's no choice. It was like time to get to work. So.
Well, the other thing too is, speaking of financial, and you can speak to this as well, and we're going to have to cut it off pretty soon, but it's an interesting topic. Even in today's game where, the average player is making more than a couple $1 million, but only an established player, you think, well, they should be fine. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes players live a lifestyle that sort of is based on the idea that they'll have this income forever. Like, we buy a house based on thinking, okay, we're going to earn a couple or $3,000 more every year. And, but if you go out and buy $1 million home,
yep.
When the money stops coming in, you still have those enormous house payments.
Yep.
And, sure, you might have some savings, but it might be, you might have invested in this or that. Your cash flow may not be as good. And some players don't manage their money well.
Absolutely.
And then they end up in this thing, and it doesn't take long before those $1 million, $1.5 million homes suddenly.
And I'll tell you, and I say this because I was one, we're easy prey for some people too. There's a lot of people out there think, okay, these are young hockey players. They're so concentrated on the career. We trust people too much and get into investments. I was sitting around a group of guys the other day. We got in an oil investment way back in the 80s that we never should have been involved in. And the person that got us into it, my agent, made the comment to me, well, Tom, if it goes wrong, the IRS will come after you in 10 years and they won't be able to find you anyways. Well, 10 years came and went, and the IRS had no problem finding me. And I had to write a pretty sizable check that was not planned for in a savings. So it happens all the time with players. So it's, there's a lot. You're right. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are really smart. They do a great job, but there's a lot of other guys that just maybe they trust people. They may be intelligent people, but they think that nobody's going to do anything wrong to them.
Yeah. Well, we've run too long here, but it was another interesting show. Sometimes you were surprised at the tangents you go into are the most interesting aspect. Definitely. But maybe one time we'll devote a whole show to, what happens after the applause dies down. To an athlete.
It'd be great to get a guy like Corey Hirsch on too.
Maybe that's the guy we'll have. Devote a whole show to it. Anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be back on Wednesday.
See you Wednesday.